Welcome back to another episode of Out Loud Geek, where we discuss news and views about pop culture, science fiction, fantasy, food, cooking, the outdoors, and more. During the 13th weekend of 2025 that ended on March 30th, 4 new movies made it into this weekend's top 5 movies at the domestic box office. And that doesn't happen often. But their cumulative total earnings for the weekend fell slightly by 2.95% to $56.1 million, as compared with last weekend's adjusted cumulative total of $57.9 million. So this weekend was the 6th consecutive weekend that the top 5 cumulative domestic box office total was below $100 million, but it did manage to stay above $50 million for 2 consecutive weekends. So that was only slightly worse overall for domestic movie theaters as compared with last weekend. But before proceeding, if you're enjoying this video, please consider pressing the like button, and if you'd like to see more of my content, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel. And I want to convey my deepest thanks and appreciation to everyone who has subscribed. This weekend's top 5 movies at the domestic box office included the following. Opening at number 1 was Balboa Productions, Cedar Park Entertainment's, Punch Palace Productions, Amazon MGM Studios, and 4 other studios' $40 million action movie entitled A Working Man. Falling to number 2 was Disney's modernized live-action remake of its 1937 classic Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, entitled Snow White, starring Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot. Opening at number 3 was 5 & 2 Studios' religious drama entitled The Chosen Last Supper Part 1. Opening at number 4 was Blumhouse's low-budget horror movie entitled The Woman in the Yard. And opening at number 5 was A24's and Leyline's black comedy entitled Death of a Unicorn. A Working Man opened by earning $15.2 million domestically and $15 million internationally for a global gross opening weekend box office total of $30.2 million. Snow White earned another $14.2 million during the weekend and $10.4 million during the week domestically, $32 million internationally, and $56.6 million globally to bring its current domestic, international, and global gross box office totals up to $66.8 million, $76.3 million, and $143.1 million, respectively. So the movie's domestic box office earnings dropped by 66.4% as compared with its opening weekend. The Chosen Last Supper Part 1 opened by earning $11.5 million domestically, but no money was earned internationally. The Woman in the Yard opened by earning $9.5 million domestically, but no money was earned internationally. Death of a Unicorn opened by earning $5.8 million domestically, but no money was earned internationally. That brings us to several other movies that I am continuing to track but are no longer in or never were in the top 5, and they include the following. Falling out of the top 5 to number 7 was Disney's and Marvel Studios' newest MCU movie entitled Captain America: Brave New World, starring Anthony Mackie and Harrison Ford. Also falling out of the top 5 to number 9 was Warner Bros. Plan B Entertainment's, Offscreen's, and Kate Street Picture Company's sci-fi black comedy movie entitled Mickey 17. Falling to number 19 was Walt Disney Pictures' animated prequel entitled Mufasa: The Lion King. And falling to number 30 was Walt Disney Animation Studios' sequel entitled Moana 2. Captain America: Brave New World earned another $2.8 million domestically, $582,000 internationally, and $5.1 million globally to bring its current domestic, international, and global gross box office totals up to $196.6 million, $209.3 million, and $405.8 million, respectively. Mickey 17 earned another $1.9 million domestically, $7.7 million internationally, and $11.3 million globally to bring its current domestic, international, and global gross box office totals up to $43.6 million, $77.5 million, and $121.1 million, respectively. Mufasa: The Lion King earned another $245,000 during the weekend and $332,000 during the week domestically, $2.4 million million internationally and $3 million globally to bring its current domestic, international, and global gross box office totals up to $254.4 million, $466.6 million, and $721 million, respectively. Moana 2 earned another $14,000 during the weekend and $24,000 during the week domestically, $687,000 internationally, and $725,000 globally to bring its current domestic, international, and global gross box office totals up to $460.4 million, $599.1 million, and $1,059.5 million, respectively. Now, to know whether these movies are going to break even or not, as well as how much money they might be losing, we need to estimate their break-even points. When a movie's marketing budget is known, we can add it to the movie's production budget and then multiply the sum by 2. Otherwise, we can multiply the production budget by 2.5 for a single mid-range estimated break-even point, or by both 2.5 and 3.0 for a broader estimated break-even point range. Both methods account for the 50% of gross box office ticket sales that movie theaters keep for themselves. For Snow White, with its reported production budget of $213.9 million, as reported by Forbes, that yields an estimated break-even point range of $534.8 million to $641.7 million. For Captain America Brave New World, with its production budget of around $362.5 million, as reported by World of Real and not the $180 million that Disney has clearly falsely reported because they don't want their shareholders knowing how much the movie is losing, that yields an estimated break-even point range of around $906.3 million to $1,087.5 million. For Mickey 17, with its reported production budget of $118 million, that yields an estimated break-even point range of $295 million to $354 million. For Mufasa the Lion King, with its production budget of $200 million, as reported by multiple sources, that yields an estimated break-even point range of $500 million to $600 million. For Moana 2, with its reported production budget of $150 million, that yields a break-even point range of $375 million to $450 million. So in this video, I am no longer projecting or never have projected what the final domestic or global gross box office earnings might be for the movies Captain America Brave New World, Mickey 17, Mufasa the Lion King, or Moana 2, because their expected future earnings are either currently too small, possibly non-existent, or going unreported, or their projected earnings aren't much higher than their current earnings. So with the movie's estimated break-even point range of $906.3 million to $1,087.5 million, Captain America Brave New World is a flop and currently stands to lose somewhere on the order of $500.4 to $681.7 million in global gross box office revenue, which, when divided by 2 to account for the 50% of gross box office ticket sales that movie theaters keep for themselves, means that Disney and Marvel Studios currently stand to lose around $250.2 million to $340.8 million. Then for Mickey 17, with its estimated break-even point range of $295 million to $354 million, the movie is a flop and currently stands to lose somewhere on the order of $173.9 million to $232.9 million in global gross box office revenue, which, when divided by 2 to account for the 50% of gross box office ticket sales that movie theaters keep for themselves, means that Warner Brothers, Plan B Entertainment, Offscreen, and Kate Street Picture Company currently stand to lose around $87 million to $116.5 million. But Mufasa the Lion King and Moana 2 have already made bank. And that now brings us to the movies whose final domestic and global gross box office revenues I am currently projecting, which includes Snow White. For Snow White, using a range of possible average weekly drops from 23.51% to 35.42%, which are plus and minus 1 standard deviation away from the overall average weekly drop of 29.47% for the previous 18 Disney live-action movies released from 1994 to 2024, I can project that the final domestic box office earnings for the movie may range from $111.6 million at the low end, $125.5 million at the mid-range, and $145.8 million at the upper end, which is lower than last week's projection. Then by using the movie's current domestic share of 46.69%, which is lower than last week, I can project that the final global gross box office earnings for the movie may range from $239.1 million at the low end, $268.8 million at the mid-range, and $312.2 million at the upper end, which is lower than last week's projection. So with the movie's estimated break-even point range of $534.8 million to $641.7 million, Snow White is a flop and currently stands to lose somewhere on the order of $222.5 million to $402.6 million in global gross box office revenue, which, when divided by 2 to account for the 50% of gross box office ticket sales that movie theaters keep for themselves, means that Disney currently stands to lose around $111.3 million to $201.3 million. So to recap, Snow White, Mickey 17, and Captain America Brave New World are box office flops, while Mufasa the Lion King and Moana 2 have both made bank. Please let me know in the comments below what you thought of this video and whether you have or are planning to see any of the movies that I talked about. Thanks for watching today, and a huge thanks to each and every one of you who has subscribed to support this channel. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, and Blue Sky by clicking on the links in the description. Until next time, this is Out Loud Geek.